Hi, everybody. My name is Ian O'Byrne. I'm the Multi-Literacies Department Editor for the Journal of Adolescent and Adult Literacy. This is a series of interviews that we're putting together with experts in the field to go along with the columns that I'm putting out in JAL. And this second column that we put together is on open. So to talk about that, I have an expert that I've bumped into a couple times online. Rhonda, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Ronda Dorsey. I consider myself an open advocate first, and a teacher and learner, or probably a learner and teacher, depending on the situation. I'm an instructional designer, instructional systems technologist. My previous employment was with Lumen Learning as an open instructional designer and faculty success lead. And I'm now actually just beginning a new position with the Department of Defense in Indianapolis as an instructional systems in Indiana. So, yeah, welcome. Thank you for having me today.
Hey, thank you. So to get us started, the column was all about open. And we hear everybody talking about open. It's one of these buzzwords, but when we're talking a little bit earlier, it seems everybody's got their own permutations on what open means. So to you, what does open mean, and what does it mean for an educational context? What does it mean for teaching and learning?
Well, ultimately, my former CEO, Dr. David Wiley, out of BYU, and now with Lumen Learning, and then Kim Thanos is our CEO. The idea is that education is really about sharing. And so we would say that the most successful educators are those that share the most completely with the most students. And so with that premise, I don't think a lot of people would argue that. When we then put it in the context of open, we can kind of borrow from the open source movement with software and apply those same type of ideas to education and how we deal with educational resources. So really what we're looking at, what Dr. Wiley kind of brought out were the 5 R's. It used to be 4 R's, and now there's 5 R's. And it's about retaining, reusing, revising, remixing, and then redistributing those materials back to whomever is interested in using them according to the open license that the creator decides to use to give back to the community. So it really is about giving back. I mean, as teachers, as students, we're talking about feedback and how to improve, and it isn't just this one-sided view anymore. It's not just the sage on the stage. It really is about the sharing of community and ideas. And I think for me, that's what's been most life-changing in a lot of respects, professionally and even personally, about my view of open and even my approach to my career and how I even work with my students. So for me, it really is just about sharing.
So I mean, the fundamental question is, why open? Why should if I'm a teacher watching this and I'm in a secondary school, I'm in a high school, or I'm a university professor, why open? What are the benefits? What am I going to see happening in my classroom? What are the real benefits of being open?
Well, if you think about, let's say, an encyclopedia set, for example, printed materials. If I were to give you, let's say, in fact, my laptop is on top of my favorite book, the Compact Oxford English Dictionary. And if I gave you the A to O of the OED, I would give you that in a printed version, and I would have to wait for you to give it back to me before I could share it with someone else. Whereas if we make it in a digital format, we can share it with millions of people all over the world that have access to it for practically almost nothing if they have Wi-Fi access. And so when we think about that, we realize that ideas are really non-rivalrous and that they can be given without being given away. But if they're in a print version, they can't be just given away. Then we need to get it back somehow. So the beauty of having a physical expression turn into a digital way is that it becomes non-rivalrous, and that we can share practically for free. So when we leverage the internet and our digital capabilities, it gives us this unprecedented capacity to share and to educate in ways that we've never done before, or at least historically speaking. And so that's what's exciting about open. Also, when we talk about textbooks in general and just how much textbooks cost, and copyright, copyright cancels the possibilities of being able to use digital media and the internet for distributing or editing or adapting. Yes, it's free use or fair use, but to do that over and over again, you are bound by what we have here. So when we think about the consumer price indexes and how that college tuition has outpaced inflation by over 237% since 1978, when we think about student loan debt that's over $1 trillion, we realize that tuition is really political. And as teachers, there's not a lot that we can do about tuition. They're above us. They're at a higher level, state level, maybe national level. But textbook adoptions, or using open educational resources, or OER, open, that's something that we can do in our classroom and make a huge impact. In the last decade, textbook prices have increased over 82%, and all of these statistics that I have are just coming from student curbs that anybody can go and check out. And really, it's in a chronicle. None of this is probably new or surprising for people, but it is what's happening, and there is something that we can do about it as open advocates.
So you talked about sharing and you talked about impact on students. What is from your experience, what is the impact on student engagement and motivation? What does this mean for the learner?
Well, what it means is that all of my students, when I choose to use open educational resources, they all have access to all of the materials that they need for my class on the very first day of class, on day one. And I remember when, before I was using open, the first couple weeks, my first assignment would always be, here's the syllabus, let's read the syllabus, and okay, I want everybody to go buy the textbook. And some students, for whatever reasons, didn't have the funds to do that, whether they didn't fill out the FAFSA correctly or check a box right, or they didn't get money from their parents or whomever was helping, or scholarship money hadn't come in. And so my students, especially in the condensed 8-week type of classes, they were running 2 or 3 weeks in the class without having the content and without having access to it. And it was frustrating for me because I didn't have a fundamental understanding of that impact on my classroom. And once I did get that understanding, I realized how if I would just choose to use open materials, because really Psychology 101 at Yale or at the college where I used to teach, Saturn State College or anywhere else, is Psych 101 really content-wise that different across the board? And generally speaking, the subject matter is likely very much the same. So there's tons of materials out there. Why not use them and allow students to be able to have that access from the first day so that they're able to be engaged immediately. So actually, adopting OER completely changed how I taught my class, and it completely changed how my students were engaged from the very first day. Very first day, they were doing work. They were, the expectations were higher, and they were more motivated because they had access to the materials that they needed. So they were more interested and excited to get to work and do well.
That's one of the, we talked about it earlier. There's this challenge with, privileging of text, the privileging of the print materials as opposed to online materials. But we had the same effort here. I'm teaching Ed Psych tonight, and it's, for the most part, it's all staying the same, and they have a new edition that comes out, and it's charging more money, and the students are getting priced out more and more often, and there's that economic piece. So we're looking at, can we collaboratively build a text? So if I'm a teacher watching this, I'm an instructor, how do you start? Like if you say, I'm all in, I know that there's some challenges, sharing is good. I think sharing is a valuable piece of my classroom. I'm all in. I want to do this. What is your advice for people to get started?
Well, the best thing to do is to reach out to the community, in my opinion, because if you can make a connection with someone like you or someone like me or some of the other fabulous people that are out there in the open world, you can do that as easily as using the hashtag OER or the hashtag open, or going to Creative Commons, or going to Lumen Learning, or visiting a sailor. I mean, it's big now. OER Research Hub is huge. OER Africa. I mean, it's international now, and just being able to connect with one person can give you that chance to kind of open up. Also, you can use, we all are, our best friend on the internet is Google, and there's a way to do an advanced Google search where you can actually select materials that are openly licensed, so that when you do your search, generally speaking, what would come back would be openly licensed materials. And I have tons of resources that I would be happy to share with anyone that's interested, and I can put those in the chat, or I can also send them to my SlideShare or my website. There's tons of resources out there, but I will say that one of the greatest criticisms of open is that there isn't necessarily one repository to find everything. It's just far and wide, and so really. Just reaching out to people and kind of getting a little guidance, I think, is a great way to begin. And attending the Open Ed conference, that's next week, I believe, and visiting war sites and just seeing what's out there with the advocates that are currently talking about it and writing about it. So those are some of the easiest ways to get started with it.
So get out and Google and go on Twitter and search for pound OER and pound open, and reach out and connect with other people trying to do this and pick their brains and see what they do, and Google materials.
Absolutely, and I'm happy to share as much. I love working with faculty and institutions, and part of my volunteer work is assisting in that. So. I'm on Twitter @Openarian, and the idea behind that is that vegetarians feed off of
vegetables
or carnivores or what have you, and that as an educator I feed off of open, and so I like the idea of being able to leverage that in a social networking environment. That's pretty much all that I kind of tweet about, unless there's something really cool I could start with.
That's why you're the perfect person to start us off with this column.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I'll take all of your materials. We'll put them up on a post for everybody to access and use. We'll be able to share with other people, and we'll continue the dialogue and keep the conversation rolling. Rhonda, I really thank you. I appreciate you spending time with us. Any last words?
Just join the open movement. We're happy to have you, and check out. There's a Derek Sievers TED Talk. It's called "How to Start a Movement," and it's about a lone nut and being the one to follow the lone nut, and really becoming part of something bigger than that. So you might feel like a lone nut at your institution, and really you're not. There's a bigger movement out there, and we're all happy to join you and give you the support that you need to be successful at your institution, for you, your students, and just the global community at large. So thank you so much for asking me to join you today. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thank you very much. All right, we'll see you on the next episode.